Wednesday, April 5th, 2023, Monaco 64, home of alternative economics and contrarian views. Today, we're going to look at what I think is one of the most important topics right now in terms of your finances, especially if you are in the United States, and that's the dollar's reserve status as a major currency. Yeah, there's a lot of debate about that. But before I start, I like to say that over the years, many of you have asked me where they could buy gold or silver, because I've always spoken about the importance of having gold and silver because they're real money. And as the dollar's importance wanes, gold and silver are only going to go higher, or the dollar's going to go lower, but not just against the dollar, but against all the other fiat currencies. So I've had a few partners, precious metals partners, or bullion dealers that I've had over the years. One of them in the UK is Gold Investments. And in the US recently, I've partnered with Miles Franklin and also ITM Trading. So if you're thinking about buying gold and silver, give them a go, or as I've always said as well, do your homework, look for the best deal. But I can vouch for those three dealers. They're reputable. I've dealt with Gold Investments for over 20 years. And yes, I can vouch also for ITM and Miles Franklin. So yeah, thankfully, Rudy is quiet right now. He wasn't earlier. I had to put my foot down. Sometimes you do. And so the question of reserve currencies, and I think looking back at history to see what happens to reserve currencies is always a good thing. So the most recent major reserve currency that fell from grace, so to speak, that went from being top dog to being just one of the many dogs in the pack, well, it's the British pound, or sterling. And we have to go back to the late 40s to see how the status of the pound sterling really declined very quickly. So why did that happen? Well, I think it was all the debt incurred by Britain, not just from World War II, but from World War I. Even though they won both those wars, the British were on the winning side. By the end of World War II, the country was up to here in debt. It sounds familiar, doesn't it? The United States, it hasn't really won any wars since World War II. It doesn't seem to win wars anymore. But what it does is spend trillions of dollars in places like Iraq, Afghanistan, and also the so-called war on terror, I would say. So it's very familiar. You get up to here in that, the currency doesn't become viable for other countries to use, and it loses in importance. So I found this paper here, and this was written, let's see, in February 2020 by Melis Avaro of the Graduate Institute in Geneva, Switzerland. And it's entitled "A Zombie International Currency, the Pound Sterling, 1945 to 1973. I'm going to put a link to this below in the description. And the reason I'm showing this is to make you aware. And you might not agree with me, and you might want to hold on to your dollars or decrease the holdings of your dollar and maybe get some gold or some other currencies. I'm not saying the dollar is going to go away, but its importance is going to wane, and that what that will mean is less demand for dollars from abroad, because countries, let's say Indonesia, will deal with Malaysia in their own currencies. They won't need to use the dollar. Brazil will deal with China in their own currency. China will use reals or yuan. The dollar is not going to be as important. Yes, people will still need dollars, other countries, if they're buying things from the US. the US might need to start holding other currencies as well. Who knows? Why not? But as you can see here by this chart, percentage of world foreign exchange reserves. So back in 1948, as you can see, sterling made up 80% of foreign exchange reserves, which is even more than what the dollar has right now. But as you can see, by, well, 10 years later, pretty much, it was down to 30%. Yes, and the dollar, of course, was picking up. That's when, and you can see here, actually 1954 is the year when the dollar actually became the major reserve currency. So it wasn't even after the Bretton Woods Agreement. So that's very interesting. And so as you can see, things don't last forever. And we got down to 10% by the 70s. I think now it's about 5%. So people still hold sterling or the British pound. It's not as important anymore. And that's why the exchange rate has gone from just below 5 before the start of World War I to around 4 in the post World War II era. And now we're almost 1-to-1 against the dollar. Yes, we've rebounded a bit to 125. But I would say the trend for sterling is still lower. But the dollar is now, I would say, on the same path as the as sterling was in the late 1940s, early mid 1950s. So we're going to look at some data here from, actually I found this, it's from the IMF, but it's on Wikipedia, global currency reserves. And if you go back to 1965, you can see that the dollar made up almost 73% of world reserve assets, for foreign currency assets, foreign exchange reserves. And it topped really in 1970 at 84.85%. And from then on, it dropped all the way to 47.14 in 1990. And then it started picking up, and it started picking up mainly because of the collapse of the Soviet Union, I would say, and the start of globalization, the singularity, or not a multipolar world. And we got to a top of 71.5% in 2001. And since then, as we can see, it's dropped to 58.3 as of last year. The euro is at 20.47. And yes, the yen is at 5.5. As I said, sterling is just below 5%. And the Chinese currency, of course, is only 2.69. But what I think we're going to see here is other currencies coming into the equation. And the renminbi, or the yuan, the ruble, the real, they're going to be more important to other countries. So we're going to see an increase in those countries' reserves. And I could see, if you add them up, they'll be similar to the euro, I would say, around 20% of reserves. And that's going to chip away at the US dollar reserves. So yes, we're not at the lowest ever. I think the lowest ever, as I said, was in 1990 at 47.14%. But it's dropping, as you can see, slowly, and I think it's going to accelerate now. And as you saw by that chart of sterling reserves back in the 40s, 50s, and 60s, things can change very quickly, and even the dollar hasn't really been the share of reserves has fluctuated a lot, as you've seen here throughout the decades. Just wanted to show you another announcement here. Malaysia's Prime Minister says no reason for Malaysia to continue depending on the dollar. So I think what he means there is not that they're not going to hold dollars, but they're going to deal with other countries in their own currency or that other country's currency. The dollar will not be part of every transaction. And then we have here, the sand is eroding around the US dollar. 18 countries have opened special Vostro rupee accounts recently to trade in rupees. 18 countries receive RBI's go ahead for trading in rupee. So you can see the countries there: Tanzania, Guyana, Oman, even the UK and New Zealand, Germany. A massive move to de-dollarize trade. So is this going to change the dollar reserve proportion there of 58.5 or whatever it is right now, or 59 in the next month? Probably not, but I bet you in 2 years' time, it's going to be a lot lower, in my opinion. And the other currency that is not a national currency, the other currency that's always been there as a major reserve asset because it's money, is gold. And I think that's going to increase as part of the reserve assets of countries. And I don't think the IMF counts gold as a foreign exchange reserve as a composition of countries. But they'll have to probably start doing it, or if they don't, it doesn't really matter, because we saw last year that a lot of these countries that are de-dollarizing, they bought the most gold on record, basically since the start of the Bretton Woods system. So that's what's going on. Things can change quickly. It's up to you, of course, to decide, or you might think the dollar is still gonna be king, but I think the end of the road is near, and that's why we're seeing the dollar reach an almost all-time low versus the major reserve asset par excellence, the dollar's big enemy, of course, gold. We saw it break through 2,000 yesterday. And with that, then we're going to look at the markets this morning. It's 8:45 a.m. London time. So we've got gold up just under $5 at 2,026. I think the high yesterday was 2,025. The high overnight is 2,028 and the low is 2,019. Silver yesterday had a very good day. It traded with three big figures. So I think the low was 23.80 and the high was above 25. This morning, it's down 12 cents though, or 0.5% at 24.89. The high's been 25.15. And I have to say, silver is heavily undervalued, because the last time gold was at these levels here 2 or 3 years ago, silver was at 30. And even if you go back to 2011, when gold reached 1900, silver got up to 50. So I think it's a bargain, but silver is important as well. And the bankers don't like silver because it's the people's money, really. Gold is a monetary asset, but it's more of nations, the sovereign's money. And that's why we're seeing these countries accumulate a lot of gold reserves. What about the stock market? Well, the Dow futures is down 50 points. The NASDAQ futures is down 25, and the S&P is down 7. To the currencies, to the fiat currencies, and they're all sinking, even though the pound and the euro have rebounded and the dollar index has gone down a bit. That's the other thing. The dollar index is not a great measure of value because it started at 100 in 1973 and we are still around 100. So the thing to realize here is that, yes, fiat currencies are all sinking versus real money, gold. But anyway, cable is down slightly, just below 125. The euro is up slightly, just below 110. The dollar is down 0.2 versus the yen at 131.49. And the dollar is unchanged versus the yuan at 687.78. Aussie dollar is down 0.5%, 67.14. And the dollar is up 1/8% versus the Canadian dollar at 134.61. The Kiwi dollar is up 0.4% at 63.38. To the general commodities, we got platinum. Platinum is doing very well. I guess it followed gold and silver. Yesterday, we're back above 1,000. We're at 1,023. It's up about $2. To the energy sector, we got WTI crude up 1/4% at 80.85, and Brent crude up 1/3% at 85.07. And high-grade copper is down back below 4. It's down 1% at 3.94. And to finish off, we're going to look at the Treasury market. The 10-year yield is up 1.5 basis point at 3.35, and the 2-year is up 3 basis points at 3.86. And to be honest, I don't think these rates, these yields are relevant at all because central banks will do everything to manipulate them. I mean, look at the Japanese government bond yields. They're ridiculously low, but look at how the Japanese yen is collapsing versus gold. So it doesn't really mean anything. Yes, hold on to JGBs and treasuries while your currencies collapse, right? We just reached an all-time high in the price of gold in yen, or an all-time low in the yen. And all that means is that the Japanese public, they're going to suffer even more because their currency is becoming worth less and less. And that's what inflation is all about. And here, we still hear the Keynesians saying that there's deflation in Japan. Go figure. So with that, I'm going to wish you all a very good day. Take care. Bye.